together.
Get there, I got one!
The crow turned at the sound of her apprentice's voice, searching the dark for any sign of him. Uhtred was a good lad, brave as a jackdaw, and wise as the raven's feathers in his hair. "Show me," she demanded, as soon as he came into the circle of light from the campfire. Uhtred thrust his hand into the pouch at his belt. He pulled out a fist, face beaming with pride, and then slowly opened his fingers to reveal a dirty, grubby plant crushed into a tight ball. It was true vervain, but only a tiny amount. Enough to save one of her 2 patients, but if they couldn't find any more before dawn, the other would still die. She reached to take the plant from his hand, but at the last minute she stopped. She looked at Uhtred for a moment, weighing the weight of years on his shoulders. The boy was far from fully trained, but he was a good apprentice. If she showed him exactly what to do, he could do this. Reaching up, she placed her hand on his shoulder and directed him towards the pallets where the 2 warriors were laying. Helvi and her brother Jaakko lay on the bed, their wounds red and weeping. She cleaned and dressed the wounds, but the cuts from the Mandaula's claws were too deep to hold the flow. "I'll show you what to do, Uhtred, but I want you to apply the herb. Have faith, do exactly what I say and all will be well. But first you'll have to choose who to treat." The boy looked at her with a look of fear and shock. He started to protest, stammering slightly, but she cut him off. "You came to me to learn to be a healer, and this is part of your training, Uhtred. Sometimes there aren't enough herbs to save them all. Sometimes someone has to choose." She felt a lump in her throat as she looked down and saw the boy's pain. Unlooked-for memories came flooding back, of standing where Uhtred was standing now, her teacher's hand on her shoulder. She could still remember every word Yuna had said that night. "You can do this, Gita Sharpeyes. You can do this because you are a hero, because this is your herb. It belongs to you, and what you do with it is up to you. Can a Thane fight with 3 swords? Well, then a warrior doesn't give his sword to his Thane, does he? He might give her his loyalty, but never his weapon. This herb is in your hands. If you want to be a hero of Wintermark, then now is the time to use what you have. You cannot give this up." She shook her head, and the vision vanished. Uhtred was staring at her like a frightened rabbit. "It's all right, Uhtred. There's others out looking for herbs. Someone else may well find some more true vervain in time." She lied, glibly. "But we must act now. You must act. You can do this. I know you can, because you're a hero." Overview. During the autumn equinox, the Wintermark Nation Assembly called for more herbs to support the heroes of the Mark. Raised by Pahinka and upheld with a greater majority, the statement of principle was circulated among all the priests and congregations of the nation. It's caused some confusion, since people are unsure who head healer of the Mark is. Whilst they grasp that Asni of Stormspire is doing some kind of good work, the role they fill isn't really known outside Anvil. There's some speculation as to whether the assembly means the Master Apothecary or the General of the Blood Cloaks, or whether they're some prominent Grimnir, but it's hard for most people to see why they would be giving their herbs to them. Surely the best thing to do with their herbs is to heal people, make potions, or sell them to increase their prosperity. Rather than dwell on the confusing part of the statement, however, the virtuous in Wintermark focus on the bit that they do understand, that there's a grievous need for healing herbs to support the heroes of the Mark. Given that the statement is about the need to use herbs to save the lives of warriors, it comes as no surprise that much of the conversation takes place among the Grimnir. Combining the study of herbs and traditional healing methods with practical experience that's invaluable to the heroic Wintermark society, the Grimnir are barred from the front lines of any conflict by ancient tradition. They're expected to hang back and keep themselves out of harm's way. A dead chirurgeon heals no warriors. the Grimnir are denied the obvious chances for heroism that warriors can find on the battlefield and instead strive to save the lives of their comrades. Every Grimnir, physic and apothecary having sufficient herbs to save lives is obviously important, but folk in Wintermark are interested in how that could be achieved without denying anyone the opportunity to pursue their own skein by simply handing over herbs to someone else to use on their behalf. The gift of health. There are 4 sinecures and a great work in Hahnmark that provide herbs. A Senate motion could be used to amend the sinecure titles to make it clearer what their purpose is. There are 4 existing sinecures that provide healing herbs to the people of Wintermark. The Gatekeeper of Falling Snow receives a bounty of a dozen cerulean mazarine each season from the hot spring-warmed Garden of Falling Snow in Kalpermark. The Herbalist of the Hearth receives a bounty of herbs from the Valley of Pride near Hendelhearth, and the Guardian of Dunferth likewise gains a harvest of herbs from the Forest of Dunferth near Dunhearth Hall. There is also the Master Apothecary, who receives herbs each season from the Master Apothecary's Garden in southern Kalpermark. Unlike the previous 3 sinecures, the Master Apothecary is expected to use the herbs provided by the sinecure to create potions for use by Imperial troops. Assuming the current Master Apothecary, Kesa Algersdottir, takes those responsibilities seriously, then that approach represents something that could be adopted for other sinecures and similar imperial titles. Currently, the other 3 sinecures have no such responsibility. They don't suggest for 1 second that Pendred the Maker, Brienne Walder Stormborn, or Kai, who hold the titles at the moment, are somehow selfish with their herbs. But there's no suggestions that they have any formal responsibility to use their bounty to help the people of Wintermark. Perhaps before seeking new sources of herbs, the leaders of Wintermark should look to these existing resources. Using what exists. The Garden of Falling Snow, the Valley of Pride, and the Forest of Dunferth could be dedicated to the service of the Wintermark people. Any amended titles would need to be appointed annually, starting at the spring equinox, the next event. The Garden of Falling Snow, the Valley of Pride, and the Forest of Dunferth between them provide more than 50 doses of herbs each season. Yet the titles that oversee them have no responsibility to use that bounty for the benefit of Wintermark. The Imperial Senate could use a Senate motion to amend these titles, making it clear that the position brings with it a responsibility to use the benefits it provides to support the heroes of Wintermark, much as the Master Apothecary currently does. If one or more of the titles were changed in this way before the end of the winter solstice, then the Grimnir and the other healers of Wintermark pledged to support the position by making any spare herbs they have available for purchase by the title holder for a sensible price. People would be happy to sell excess herbs to the title holder if they knew that part of the person's responsibilities was to support Wintermark heroes. Secure in the knowledge that they would be supporting the 3 people, they would also be content that their prosperity was being recognised as they received a fair price for their wares. As a result, each sinecure amended in this way would immediately gain the benefit of a ministry, allowing the title holder to purchase valuable healing herbs. There'd be no requirement to spend additional resources and no need to use a valuable Senate commission to receive this benefit. The current constructions to support these titles would be sufficient to support the trade in herbs. Here's how much money you'd spend on it, and here's what would be produced as a result. For 7 crowns, you'd get 6 doses of True Vervain, 4 doses each of Bladeroot and Marrowwort, and 2 doses of Imperial Roseweald. For 17 crowns, 13 doses of True Vervain, 8 doses each of Bladeroot and Marrowwort, and 4 doses of Imperial Roseweald. And for 30 crowns, you get 20 doses of True Vervain, 12 doses each of Bladeroot and Marrowwort, and 6 doses of Imperial Roseweald. The only thing that would be required is a Senate motion to change the legal responsibilities of the title. To be constitutional, however, the title would have to be changed from a lifetime appointment to an annual appointment, since the creation of the resulting ministry would make the title more significant and important than a simple sinecure. To pass scrutiny, the Senate motion would have to include words to the effect of to change the title to an annual appointment with responsibilities to provide herbs for the warriors of Wintermark. A single Senate motion could be used to amend either one named sinecure or to affect all Wintermark herb sinecures with a clearly worded motion. You can't use one motion to name multiple sinecures to be affected. The appointment method would not automatically change under this arrangement, but the Senate motion could change that too if the senators felt it was appropriate. Appointment by tally of the votes in the imperial bourse would mean these Wintermark positions would be elected by vote of the leaders of military units, which might mean that the warriors of the mark had a say in who held these important titles. Alternatively, they can be appointed by the Wintermark National Assembly, allowing the Stormcrows and other priests to use a judgment to appoint appropriate candidates. They could even be appointed by conclave, in theory. If the appointment method isn't changed, then all three titles will continue to be selected by unanimous decision of the Wintermark senators. Deep in the marshes of Calavesa, a healing house could be built near Whittle, which would grant a bounty of herbs to herb gardens in Calavesa. The statement of principle proposed by Pekina calls especially upon those who live in the lush green marshes of Calavesa to gather all the herbs they can to harvest from the hidden herb groves. This likewise causes some comment, not least because only a year ago, in Winter 382, a bearer of an imperial wayleave created Freya's Garden in Hanmark, a great work that improves the bounty of herbs harvested by gardens across the territory. Why call on the citizens of Calavesa specifically when it's the people of chilly, mountainous Hanmark that have received this beneficence? Once the initial confusion passes, constructive discussion begins. If Wintermark wishes the herbalists and healers of Calavesa to have more healing herbs, then one way to achieve that is to recognise the bounty of the marshes and to offer substantive aid to people of the territory. Either the Imperial Senate or the bearer of an Imperial wayleave could commission a great work in Calavesa to improve the production of every herb garden. Some of the Grimnir in Calavesa have even come forward to suggest an appropriate location for such a great work. Healing House of Whittle Grove. The Healing House of Whittle Grove is a great work that would require 56 wains of weirwood and 112 crowns to commission. It would take 6 months to complete. Every herb garden in Calavesa owned by a Wintermark character would share in a bounty of 90 random herbs each season. The title of Grimnir of Whittlehall could be created to oversee the healing house, with access to a personal ministry and the power to guide the production of the great work. If the healing house is built to the specifications of the Grimnir of Calavesa, it would not count towards the Senate's limited number of commissions. The Healing House of Whittle Grove was originally founded by Sigrid the Redleaf after she spent 2 years serving as the General of the Bloodcloaks during the reign of Emperor Guntherm. Sigrid, along with her wife and Grimnir Winflaid Sigring, gathered support from the local halls and boar seat holders to construct the Healing House, further cementing Whittle's long history as a place of learning about herbs and the potent plants of the marshes. Grimnir came from across Wintermark to trade herbs, recipes, and advice with other adepts of the healing arts. Now, Elena of Redleaf's Hall, a Whittle Grove Grimnir, has presented plans for the reconstruction of the healing house. In an echo of their ancestors' actions, they've already reached out to other Calavesa thanes, calling in several favours to help with construction. Plans presented for the healing house of Whittle Grove are very ambitious. They'd see it completely rebuilt, along with similar healing halls in each region of Calavesa. It would require 56 wains of weirwood, 112 crowns in labour costs, and take 6 months to complete. The result would be similar to a great work that enhanced every herb garden in Calavesa, but with some key differences. Each season, the Commission would provide a total of 90 doses of random herbs shared between every Wintermark herb garden in Calavesa. However, Elena's proposal goes further. They propose that an imperial title be created to oversee the healing house of Whittle Grove, not only to purchase surplus herbs from the Grimnir who visited as a ministry, but also to allow the herbalists of Calavesa to respond to the needs of the heroes of Wintermark. The Grimnir of Whittle Grove could have the power of announcement in the Imperial Senate, allowing them to declare one healing herb that should be prioritised by the herbmasters of Calavesa. If they selected Truvervein, Bladeroot, Marrowwort, or Imperial Roseweald, the entire 90 herb bounty would be of that type. If they picked cerulean mazarine, which is a herb that struggles to prosper in Wintermark, even in the relatively temperate climate of Calavesa, then the bounty would be reduced to 45 herbs. But again, every herb garden would benefit from the added production of the rare healing herb. The Grimnir of Whittlegrove would only need to make an announcement to change the herb, either to a specific type or to return to no particular herbal focus. Once the announcement was made, it would continue until another change was made. Elena requests that in recognition of the traditional roots of the healing house and the history of Whittlegrove, that the Senate specify that the title of Grimnir of Whittlehall is intended to specifically be held by a Grimnir. If they do so, then a number of halls are prepared to contribute assistance to completing the commission, and it wouldn't count towards the limit on the number of commissions. This opportunity is only available until the end of the winter solstice 383YE. The urgency of the call for more herbs will have faded after that point, along with interest in the healing house. Helping yourself. The Wintermark National Assembly could enact a mandate to encourage Wintermark warriors to seek out opportunities to provide their own healing herbs. If it were enacted, then for the next year a new opportunity would be available to military units that take paid work action, providing random herbs rather than the usual production. The statement of principle calls out that herbs are needed to help the warriors of Wintermark. Some practical healers suggest that as it is the warriors that need this aid and it's their health that's at risk, perhaps they could secure their own herbs. Those heroes not versed in the arts of the physic or apothecary could trade them to those who are, perhaps with the aid of the master apothecary, who has a responsibility to help imperial warriors acquire useful potions, after all. The National Assembly could lead the way by encouraging warriors to seek out opportunities to gain herbs, and encouraging the people of Wintermark to consider offering payment in herbs wherever possible. Here's a sample mandate. The heroes of Wintermark will always risk their lives for the good of the many, and those lives are worthy of preservation. Yet, heroes do not act in the assumption that others will prioritise their well-being. They do what is right because it is right. We send the Name Priest with 50 doses of Liao to urge the heroes of Wintermark to seek out opportunities to earn healing herbs for their own protection. Synod Mandate, Wintermark Assembly. If this mandate is enacted, then for the next year, until the start of the winter solstice 384YE, a new option would become available to military units that undertake independent action. Those military units will be able to work for herbs, representing both opportunities provided in Wintermark to help the owners of herb gardens and raids against the Druj in the Malum or into the Valorn of Herkinia or Liathavan. Rather than receiving their normal production of random resources, these military units would receive random herbs. Other nations' warriors would also be able to take advantage of this opportunity if they wished, but they'd do so with a 2-rank penalty to their production, since those hiring heroes for such opportunities would be looking for Wintermark warriors, where they could find them. Helping Asni. Wintermark would need to create an imperial title for Asni if they want her position to be recognised and acknowledged across Wintermark. The healers and herbalists propose the title of Woundbinder of the Mark to benefit from a commission that would require 16 wains of white granite and 32 crowns to commission. The sinecure would produce 10 doses of True Vervain, 4 doses of Blade Root, 4 doses of Imperial Roseweald, 4 doses of Marrowwort, and 2 doses of Realms Root. If given the responsibility to lead by example and tend the wounded heroes of Wintermark, the title would also be able to buy herbs. Finally, healers and herbalists consider the issue of how they might help Asni. People are keen to support Asni, but many are at pains to point out that if she is inspiring the healers of Wintermark and using all her herbs to save Wintermark heroes, then her efforts should be properly recognised and supported. They propose that the Wintermark commission a vibrant new herb garden to be built just outside Massey in the Calavesa Marsh. They've examined the ruins of Hufi Villasdottir's old estate, and apparently it'd be ideal for such a purpose. Years ago, Hufi was a well-liked healer and apothecary who took up the Grimnir's life after swearing off the path of the Ice Walker. According to the Scops' tales, Hufi was as thick as thieves with a spring eternal she called Swift Ears, and she would often riddle with this creature for access to more herbs. Her garden fell to ruin after her death, becoming so overgrown that within days it was difficult to enter. A touch of spring clearly remains to this day, but it could be tamed and set to serve whoever was appointed to benefit from it. The commission wouldn't be simple. The garden's overgrown, and it would need a lot of work. It would need 16 wains of white granite and 32 crowns, and it'd have to use one of the Empire's limited commissions. However, once complete, the garden would provide a bounty of 10 doses of true vervain, 4 doses of blade root, 4 doses of imperial roseweed, 4 doses of marrowwort each season. In addition, it would produce 2 doses of rare realms root, and who knows when they might come in useful. Crucially, if the sinecure were commissioned and built this season, or next, commissioned before the end of the spring equinox 384YE, and the accompanying imperial title given responsibility to inspire the Grimnir and healers of the nation and ensure the wounded heroes of Wintermark are tended to, then they'd pledge support to it, as they have offered to do with the other Wintermark herb sinecures. The wound binder of the mark, in addition to the herbs provided by Hufi's garden, would be able to buy additional herbs to supplement their own. Grateful Wintermark heroes could pay the wound binder whatever coin they could spare, and Asni, or whoever was appointed to the position, could then use the money to acquire the herbs needed to save lives. Here's what you'd spend, and here's the production. 7 crowns would get you 18 random herbs. 17 crowns would get you 33 random herbs. 30 crowns would get you 50 random herbs. And 46 crowns, 67 random herbs. An important title such as this would need to be appointed each year, but it could be done by unanimous decision of the Wintermark senators, or by other commonly worn paths such as the Wintermark Assembly or by tally of the votes. It couldn't be appointed by the Thanes Council, though of course the council could make clear who they think should be appointed. Ultimately, the view of most Grimnir is that this position exists to be advised by the Thanes Council and is appointed by them. Then it is the council who should bear the burden of finding the herbs needed. But if the title is meant to lead the healers of Wintermark by example, to serve the heroes of the nation, then they would be happy to support it, provided it was granted the respect and importance the position warranted by making it an official imperial title. Game design, titles and honorifics. The statement of principle mentions the head healer of Wintermark, which we believe is one of the positions created by the Thanes Council to help deal with matters at Anvil. It's important to appreciate that absolutely anyone in Empire can make up a position this way. Anything created in this way is treated as an honorific. It doesn't have any formal legal powers. Such positions can be very important, but they only have authority and significance with the other player characters who recognise them. When players create an honorific like this, then the knowledge of the position only extends to those characters who find out about it at Anvil. NPCs who don't go to Anvil won't ever meet the person with the position, so they won't assume it's particularly important. Since profound decisions have no ability to distinguish between a position like the Thanes Council of Wintermark have created and a position that an individual player character has invented, neither do the NPCs. If a title isn't intended to have any significance beyond Anvil, that's absolutely fine. These issues only matter if you want people outside Anvil to treat the position as special. If you want to make a position known and respected across Wintermark, then you have to use the mechanisms of the game to create an imperial title. Every imperial title goes onto the wiki, so everyone has the chance to know it exists, and it becomes an enduring part of the wider setting. We record the title holders and list details about the position, how it's appointed, and how it can be revoked. Players can and will engage in politics about who holds that title. It becomes part of the political game that Empire encourages. Every imperial title needs to have a constitutional appointment method. That means the title can't be appointed by the Thanes Council. The most they can do is use their influence to try and determine who's appointed. While that might seem strange, being part of the Thanes Council is itself an honorific position, so it can't have a legal power to appoint an imperial title. Structures like the Thanes Council can be really important in Empire. The game is meant to have a complex social fabric, much of which is woven by the players. But the council can only have as much influence as they can exert over other characters in the game. They can't have formal legal powers that enable them to simply do things by fiat. Creating a position at Empire is thus a decision about whether it should be an imperial title or an honorific. If it's an imperial title, then it has to follow the rules for imperial titles. It has to have an appointment method, it must be elected in some way, it can have set legal powers that only it can use, it should have responsibilities, and it may gain income or resources between events. And of course, you can only ever hold one imperial title at a time. If the title is an honorific, like Thane's Council or Head Healer of Wintermark, then it doesn't need to follow any particular rules. But it can't have any legal powers, and it won't have a wider existence in the setting. Nobody outside Anvil is going to know what honorific positions the players have been given or given each other. It matters to the characters at Anvil, but not to the rest of the nation who don't go to Anvil. Finally, as part of this particular Winds of Fortune, we've created an opportunity for players to change an honorific position into an imperial title if they wish to go that route. We've done something similar with the Runesmith as part of the Rune Grot opportunity and the Speaker for Crows with Run's Hall. As part of that, we've suggested what we think is a thematic Wintermark-inspired name for the title. That's because you cannot create an imperial title called the Head Healer of Wintermark, because that would strongly imply that whoever was appointed was in charge of the other healers, and that's not constitutional in Empire. You can do a lot of things in Empire, but you can't put one character directly in charge of other characters. We deliberately rule out names like this to try to ensure that we avoid the risk of players feeling like they need another character's permission to do something before they act.